Eighth grade. We are going to be doing a review, and then they'll take a test after this for health today. So we've covered 7 lessons. We've covered a variety of topics, but they kind of all go together. So we'll review, and then you can go ahead and take your test, and then we'll start kind of a new unit next week. So first we looked at lifestyle and longevity. So there's a few factors that can increase or decrease your longevity. So we talked about age and gender. So women live just a little bit longer than men typically, depending on all the other factors also. We talked about family history. If there's a lot of medical problems in your family, heart disease, cancer, not all cancers are hereditary, as we learned, but so all those things could decrease your longevity. Obviously, you have no control over that, though. You don't control what happens to other people in your family. So we talked about exercise. If you have an active lifestyle, you can help to reduce diseases and then generally also increase your longevity. Stress. The way you handle stress. If you are one of those people that just gets so stressed out and you kind of just shut down, that's not going to be good for you. And that ties into blood pressure, which is next. So the typical blood pressure is 120/80. It's considered high blood pressure if it's over 130 and low if it's under 80. Now, if you're like 79, that's not too crazy. It's not significant. We talked about driving. So if you're getting lots of tickets, maybe that's something that shows maybe I'm not driving so safely. Maybe I need to reevaluate the way that I am driving. Drinking. We just covered alcohol in lesson 6. And if you're going to work drunk, your risk of having an accident, whether in your car or on the job at work, increases. So all those kind of tie into each other. We talked about drugs last week. So if you remember when we took the test, the longevity game test, if you had done recreational drugs in your life, it took away 7 years. So maybe initially you don't think that drugs are so bad, but they're going to have a big impact on your longevity. Diet. Fruits and veggies are really good. Protein is good. If you're not eating well, which ties into being underweight or even overweight, it's not going to be the best thing for you. Exercise, as stated before, is a good way to help balance that weight, whether it's over or under. Seatbelts goes with driving. You need to buckle up in the car. If you get in an accident, if you're buckled up, there's a lot higher chance that you're going to be okay. And then finally, we talked about smoking. Tobacco was in lesson 6. So smoking can lead to lung cancer and other cancers, and it can lead to heart disease, which, as we talked about, decrease your longevity. Next, we had lesson 2. Where we talked about the Punnett Square and the traits you get from your parents. So dad, remember, was the TT, 2 capital T's. Mom is the TT, the little t. Now this Punnett Square is set up a little differently than maybe your typical one would be, but that's okay. So here we had dominant was 3, so any that had that big T is going to be dominant. So 1, 2, 3, and then recessive was 1. So a total of 4, but 3 are dominant and 1 is recessive. Then we talked about diseases that are influenced by heredity. So you had allergies, alcoholism, Alzheimer's, asthma, several kinds of cancer, diabetes, heart disease. And then the other thing we talked about was Mandelian traits, so things that you would get from your parents. So either being able to roll or fold your tongue, detached or attached earlobes, and I'm not going to read every single one. Hitchhiker's thumb, which was if you could bend it back. I can't do that. But so your thumb like basically bends back. Widow's peak, which was the hair thing where it comes to like a point on your head. A bent little finger, so that's your pinky finger. Freckles, whirl clockwise or counterclockwise, so that's in your fingerprints. Second toe is longer than your big toe. Might sound kind of funny, but it's not that crazy. So, lesson 3, we talked about exercise and fitness. So what is exercise? It's an activity requiring physical effort carried out to sustain or improve health and fitness. Remember that regular exercise can help make you stronger, thinner, healthier, and can help you live longer. And then there were 3 ways that exercise helps improve your body. So strength, endurance or stamina, and flexibility. So strength is the capacity of work your muscles are able to perform. Endurance or stamina is the ability to work for extended periods of time. Flexibility is the ability to stretch, twist, and bend into different positions. And that's actually really key as you get older. So if you stretch every morning or at night before you go to bed, you're going to be a lot more flexible when you're 65 than somebody who doesn't. Lesson 4 was communicable diseases. So we talked about a germ, which is a general term used to designate a microbe that is harmful to humans. And a pathogen is a microbe that is harmful to humans. So if you develop an illness from a pathogen, it is called a communicable disease. So bacteria, we have different kinds of bacteria. Some can cause pneumonia or food poisoning, tetanus, strep throat, cholera, lockjaw, leprosy, tuberculosis, typhoid fever, and diphtheria. You don't have to remember all those. Viruses are smaller than bacteria and can only grow and reproduce in living cells. Many are not harmful, but some can make you really sick. So some of the very serious diseases are rabies, polio, and yellow fever. Less serious would be the common colds, influenza or the flu, measles, mumps, fever, blisters, chickenpox, shingles, and warts. So we talked about antibiotics, which are ineffective in treating viruses. So that's why you get a flu shot and a measles shot and a chickenpox shot, or a vaccine, you could call them. So vaccines are used to help treat viruses or prevent viruses. They help you become immune. So one way a person develops immunity is by developing a disease and then recovering from it. Influenza is sometimes called the flu, like we talked about. It's spread by contact, by coughing and sneezing, or talking. So now these are just a couple of those bigger viruses we talked about. Colds are a common illness caused by viruses. They're most common in winter. And this is kind of the funny one because a person can have as many as 4 or 5 a year. Sometimes maybe you think about, well, I just got the same cold I had last week, but it could be a new one, new virus. So chickenpox was a comparatively mild childhood disease that causes a headache, slight fever, and rash, which turns into itchy blisters that contain clear fluid. So chickenpox is where you have all those red patches. The measles is a disease which usually occurs in childhood and is identified by an eruption of red spots on the skin and a fever that lasts about 3 days. Then 5, we talked about non-communicable diseases. So not all diseases are caused by microbes or pathogens like communicable diseases. Some occur over a period of time. Those are called non-communicable or chronic. The 2 major ones are heart disease and cancer. Remember, heart disease is the number one disease, but it's a general term. So it includes cardiovascular problems such as high blood pressure, congenital defects, infection, narrowing of the coronary arteries, and problems of heart rhythm. And then remember, cancer was the second leading cause of death. So the most common methods for treating cancer are surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. And remember, you could have a combination of those. So maybe you would have radiation before surgery or radiation with chemotherapy. Definitely options. You have anorexia nervosa. So 4 of those big diseases here. It's the result of excessively and unsafely dieting, which causes abnormal thinness. Appendicitis is an inflammation of the appendix. And remember, you can live without your appendix. So typically when people have appendicitis, they actually get their appendix removed. Asthma is a respiratory disease. An attack occurs when the muscles surrounding the bronchial tubes go into a spasm, which reduces the size of the airway, which is what you have an inhaler for, to help with breathing. Diabetes is distinguished by an increase of sugar in the blood and urine. The pancreas fails to secrete enough insulin to utilize sugar. Remember, there's type 1 and type 2. One is developed typically when you're like older, and one is for children. And we had lesson 6 was tobacco and alcohol. So tobacco facts, where it can be harmful to your liver, which is responsible for processing drugs, alcohol, and other toxins and then removing them from your body. It can be harmful to your immune system, which protects the body from foreign substances. It can damage the esophagus, which allows the passage of food from the pharynx to the stomach. And with that, it can cause drastic changes in the digestive system, which is responsible for converting foods into the nutrients the body needs to survive. So that happens, you might not be able to eat normally. It can lead to cancer, the larynx and esophagus, because it irritates the membranes of the throat. Then some alcohol facts. Remember, a few drinks do not harm most people, but excessive drinking can cause many health problems, including premature death. The effects of alcohol can include slurred speech and impaired movements, senses, and judgment. It can be difficult to remember, think, pay attention, or learn. And then this was the kind of big one. It can take a month after just 5 drinks to return a person's brain to normal function. Remember, we talked about college kids or high school kids that party too. But remember too, if someone drinks on Friday and then they drink on Monday, then that month starts over on Monday. It's going to take a month from then. Other problems of alcohol, accidents can happen because of lack of or difficulty in judgment and decision making, and it's devastating on your organs. And then remember, not just car accidents, but those who are under the influence can have trouble at the workplace, operating machines, and even just walking around their home. And then finally, we talked about drugs last week. So drug is a word that causes confusion. They can cure fevers, headaches, coughs, and even save our lives. Some are developed to make us well, and those are called medicines. Others are illegal and can ruin lives. We talked about the FDA, or the Federal Drug Administration, who approves drugs before distribution or manufacture. So it undergoes many tests, and if they're not used properly, they can be dangerous. Nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol are all considered drugs. And then we talked about illegal drugs. So they're typically used to make a person feel euphoric or get high, but most of them are addictive. And at some point, a drug addict develops a tolerance, which means they need more, which can lead to an overdose, which can result in death. We classified the drugs in the 3 big categories, which were stimulants, depressants, and hallucinogens. And remember, the hardest thing sometimes is to just say no. People might be making fun of you, saying mean things to you, but it's okay still to say no. That's what you should be doing. And then remember too, if nobody finds out, anybody at all, God still knows. So that's who we answer to, is to God. And even if you're not doing it for yourself, you should be doing it for God. Okay? So that's it for our review. So make sure you complete the questions for the lessons 1 to 7 test. Let me know if you have questions or are confused about something. Otherwise, that's your assignment for next week, Friday. And then we're going to start talking about nutrition.